talking about social skills, we really have to talk about what they are. Social skills are really any skills, also behaviors, that facilitate interactions and communication with others. When you break that down, in other words, social skills are behaviors that make others want to interact with us again and also make it pleasurable for us to continue talking with others. There are a host of different complex skills involved in what we call social skills. There are both verbal social skills, and there's a list here, and also nonverbal nuances and skills that our kids need to learn. When you look through this list, and this is by far not an exhaustive list, you can see how complex and involved conversation and maintaining social interactions are. So why are social skills important? Really, they're critical to success socially, emotionally, and in our cognitive development. Kids learn from adults, kids learn from each other, and having the skill to be able to facilitate that interaction are really important. Social skills directly impact future vocational, so that's college or career readiness skills, and also residential opportunities. When children have poor social skills, it really impedes their ability to establish meaningful relationships, and this can contribute to withdrawal and isolation. Research shows that people who have sound friendships report a higher quality of life. A lot of our kiddos, I just read a statistic for children with autism, 72% of people with autism develop some kind of mental health concern. And I think a big part of this is a lack of ability or understanding on the part of peers in terms of working on social skills. So a social skills deficit and feeling isolated or not establishing meaningful relationships can contribute to anxiety and depression. We definitely don't want to see that in any of our kiddos. Another reason social skills are important is you can't do everything that you need and want for yourself. You can get more of what you want and what you need through communication and facilitated social interaction. So most people tend to pick up social skills in the same way they acquire language, by being exposed to it through the natural contingencies in the environment, so they pick it up easily. But our kiddos diagnosed with autism and sometimes other disabilities don't necessarily have that implicit social map. So they don't pick up, just like they don't pick up language, often socially, naturally or easily. So they may need, just like a lot of their language skills, to systematically learn what appropriate social interaction looks like. So a lot of parents ask, and especially we have, kids from fourth grade to pre-K in our program. A lot of people are like, okay, well, what can we do and where can we start? The first thing to do, and the best way for you to work on social skills at home, is really identifying those prerequisite skills. So what kind of skills can we teach now in order for our child to be successful in a social situation later? Some examples include sustained toy play, so being able to play with the same toy for a long time, responding to their name or bids for attention. Bids for attention are something like, hey, look at this truck over here, and then the kid turning and oriented to it. Imitating with objects, that's a lot of our pre-K play. I'm going to show you what to do with this cool toy, and then you're going to learn how to do it by imitating what I did. Big one, number 4, relinquishing preferred items. So that's just a fancy way of saying sharing. And then, of course, all your observing responses, being able to respond to one-step directions, not only from adults, but from peers, being sensitive to changes in the environment that occasion a lot of different social behaviors. So just like we've talked about before with our three-term contingency or um, our ABCs of behavior, when we teach these skills, we want to use those same principles. So if we're teaching a skill, we want to make sure there's a clear antecedent or direction or some kind of change in the environment that elicits the behavior from our child. And then as we're teaching, we need to make sure that there's a consequence, meaning some kind of reinforcement or reward for doing something correctly, or showing our child how to do the skill correctly if they do it incorrectly. I'm going to show you some examples on the next slide. For example, if we wanted to teach object imitation, so having our kid watch us do something with a toy and then them repeating it, we would do something like orient them to the materials and say, hey, why don't you try this? And then demonstrate the skill. So if I was stacking blocks, I would say, hey, look, let's do this. That's the antecedent, and stacking the blocks one on top of the other. The behavior we want to see from our child is them starting to do the same thing, imitating that play skill. And then the consequence would us be saying something like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Great job stacking those blocks. Or if we need it, sometimes starting some kind of other additional reinforcer, time to go play with a favorite toy, a small snack, high fives, tickles, whatever. And that's the way you would consequate that if they do it. If they don't imitate your response, you want to go ahead and deliver that antecedent again, say, okay, let's do this, show them what to do, and then help them, whether that's moving their hands or pointing to what they need to do to complete that skill correctly. There is a video on our YouTube page called Imitation with Objects, and you can watch that for a more detailed description on how to run this program. Another example of teaching a prerequisite skill would be something like relinquishing preferred items, so working on sharing. So sitting with your child and letting them play with something they really enjoy, and then saying, hey, okay, it's my turn, or let's share, or let me try, and putting your hand out for them to share. Obviously, the appropriate behavior we would want to eventually work towards is them handing it over and giving you a short turn. You might want to start with just them letting you touch the object, or them saying no thank you, because that's sometimes appropriate when you're sharing. And then the consequence, same thing, social praise for a correct response, maybe some additional reinforcer, and then if they don't share, show them what sharing looks like, and make sure to follow through. Some of our kiddos are not quite ready to work on sharing, especially with their parents when their toys are mostly played with by themselves. So you might need to work on steps like trading or waiting to play with an object first before you can work on sharing. All right. And just wrapping up, it's important to remember, and I'll go through all these 5 different kinds of social skills intervention on a more detailed presentation, but the ones you can use, especially when you're home with your children right now, are the 3 that are underlined: environmental manipulations, child specific, and collateral. Environmental modifications are really things that you can do in the environment to facilitate that social interaction. So give your child their sibling's favorite toy and have that sibling ask for it. Put out more interactive activities or things that your child and you like to do together rather than things they prefer to play with solitarily. Refrain from putting too many toys or activities out so students can bounce from one to another and you have to follow their lead. Things like that, just changing the environment to facilitate more of that back and forth and reciprocal play. Child-specific interventions are just what they sound like, targeting those social skills specifically with your child. So whether that's taking turns, whether that's requesting items from you, whether that's playing a specific game or completing a certain skill, that's you teaching them directly using those ABCs of behavior to really work on that. And collateral skills are those prerequisites we talked about. So not necessarily a particular skill that is all about social behavior, but play skills, following directions, some of those skills that will lead to better and more positive social interactions in the future. Teaching your child how to play different age appropriate games so that when they're back with their peers, they might have a chance to do that. All good examples of what you could teach collaterally. Some general recommendations is it's really important to just break down what skill your kiddo might need. You don't want to work on social skills. I have my hands up in air quotes here. As a whole bundle of skills, you want to pick one or two things that your child can work on. And if you're not sure what those are in terms of social skills, definitely reach out to me or your child's teacher to figure out something good to work on while you're at home. You want to make sure you make the teaching strategy short, fun, and specific. Make sure you're trying to determine when you'll do this. So you don't want to just do it once every other day. You want a couple opportunities a day and contrive those opportunities a couple times a day so your child really has practice with that social skill. It's really important. I know you're doing some things with your teaching sessions at home, but it's great to work on these skills in the natural setting so your students will have a more chance of generalizing or using those skills in the future. And then, of course, just like everything else we talk about and every skill on our YouTube channel that we've showed you how to do, make sure you're providing high rates of reinforcement at first. That way our kids are excited and motivated to perform, and then we can fade out those supports as we get more fluent and more excellent at performing a behavior. Please email me or contact me with any questions you may have. Again, we'll do a more robust social skills presentation in the coming weeks, but we wanted to get you a few ideas on what things you can work on with your child in the social domain. Here's our YouTube web address. Click on that and you can find this presentation as well as content from a host of different teaching strategies, professional development, parent trainings, etc. Thanks so much for participating today, and we will see you guys a little bit later.